Hey, everybody, we're live, and I'm pleased to have been able to catch my friend John Burris. I haven't talked to him quite some time. He was just in the negotiated settlement hearing meeting, which is actually rather short. John, first of all, thank you for taking time to join us. Um,
Yes, good to be with you.
he's a legendary lawyer and nationally and in Oakland. John, what did we just see in that short meeting? Sheng Thao gave a
What the judge was terse. He had already made up his mind what he wanted to do, and that is he wants to give the parties an opportunity to prepare a plan to resolve any outstanding conflicts. I think that that is an indication that he does not necessarily want to extend the sustainability period. He's essentially saying, come back here on the 8th or the 11th and have solved it by putting forth a plan that everyone agrees upon, and he can evaluate. And from there, he will determine whether or not the department is in compliance or not. I think it's a good sign myself that he recognizes that, sure, there are some deficiencies within the department, but they're human problems and they can be solved. Although solved in the sense that you can put policies and procedures in place. However, people always will, for whatever reason, will violate those policies, and you have to be able to hold them accountable. So it's a question of putting in place checks and balances so that if someone does, in fact, go try to violate the rules and procedures and try to curry favors in ways that they should not, that there'll be a check and balance to catch all of that. So to me, it represents a very positive sign that we're moving forward.
What do you think? What do you think of what happened to Chief Armstrong? Because I have a number of sources that said that it was a setup, a hit job, and I've gotten a lot of information and data having been able to put out yet, aside from what I've already put out. But this is your platform here. What do you think of what's happened?
I read your comments, and I thought they were very engaging and insightful. And I thought that whoever your source was, they seemed to be pretty good. Now, and from my point of view, I thought that his placement on administrative leave was not supported by evidence. It should not have occurred. And that whatever the reasons for it, I think was an overreaction to what was in the report and jumped to conclusions that were not supported by the facts. And as a consequence of that, I think he got a raw deal, but I do not anticipate him being terminated. I do fully expect him to prevail and to be back on the job in the near future.
What did you think of Mayor Thao's comments? Sort of all over the place to me, but curious to know what you thought.
She's a politician, and so, yeah, and she's new to the job. It's her first appearance before the court, so she wanted to make a good impression that she has some breadth and understanding and that she's committed to the NSA, but she's also committed to the department and the officers, and that and she recognizes that people do get out of hand, but they will be held to answer. So in that sense, I thought that she was positive.
What are the next steps? The judge laid out some details, but
well, he wants us to work things out. I mean, there's a task that's uncompleted, task 5. That's an internal affairs section. Determine whether or not you can put policies in place and procedures so that it will work efficiently and there are checks and balances within it. Here, a situation, an officer tried to circumvent that process and did, in fact, do that and curry favors, ethnic favors amongst 8 ethnic groups. So they want to make sure that doesn't happen again. And I think that that's easily correctable. Easily correctable.
Can you elaborate on the curry favors with certain ethnic groups part?
Well, there's, I don't want to give out the names because I'm not privy to all of them. I am privy, but I don't think I should give those names out in a public way. It was an ethnic group in terms of 2 Chinese Asian men involved, one helping another in ways he shouldn't have helped.
So we're talking about, for those who follow this and they've seen the words, they've asked me about Officer Michael Chang. I don't expect you to respond, but then also there's another gentleman, Clifford Wong, who's the deputy chief, who seems to have a role in all this too.
No, but it's not him.
It's not him. Okay.
Not him.
Oh, it's the other gentleman who's no longer there. He's now with Parks and Rec.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, got it. I got it. So, whose name just flew right out of my head because that happens. What are we to make of the fact that this happened right after the new mayor took office? How much of that it should be considered as opposed to Warshaw's contract being up or anything else?
I don't think it should be considered at all. The mayor's position happened to come up with that issue was that the contract that the NSA might end in a certain period of time, which is in May, which we were hopeful, and he was wondering about whether or not there was some nefarious activity that took place here in order to delay that from occurring. So it had nothing to do with the mayor's office. It had more to do, I think, the fact that we were nearing the end.
And a number of people have pointed out to me, and I don't want to have you put you in a bad position, but does this look to you, without using names, you mentioned two gentlemen, but is there also the case, I'll just lay it out there, the deputy chief that has been very close to LeRonne, she was put in charge of the Bureau of Risk Management. What
I know what you're talking about, but I don't want to speak to that question. I
Gotcha.
don't know. I don't have facts on that. That's all conjecture, and it's all rumors, and you may have more direct information than me. I just know their names floating around, and it's not something I can respond to and feel good about.
Oh, I understand. The motivation for me to ask wasn't so much just what I was told, but I found a document that focused on what the Bureau of Risk Management does and the fact she was placed in charge of it. And if you follow the normal process as it's laid out, that organization should have had some, bite, if you will.
No question about it. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it should have. The Bureau should have been responsible for conducting an investigation. And right.
Yeah, it's just this. Are we better or worse, or where are we headed with this, in your view?
We're better than you got to know that the mess that I inherited when I took over this case was a horrible department. It's not a horrible department now. And people are treated very, very well, and that the black people in the street are treated well. We don't have shootings. We don't have a lot of racial profiling. We don't have people stopped because they're on probation or before. We don't have pursuits. We don't have killings. We don't have mistreatment of mentally impaired. We have a really much better part. The part that happened today is really an internal situation where one officer was trying to help another officer. We have a consistency of discipline component to the department too. And so that's one of the things I worked on personally to make sure that officers were treated equally, because it was really more functional black officers I was concerned about. But then now that there are other ethnic groups in there, so everyone's part of it.
And I was also told there were 1,521 cases that the Internal Affairs Division had to handle in 2021 alone. That's an enormous number. How did the chief?
I don't know the answer to that, and if it had, it's because of that would have to be related to protests and things of that nature occur. And the protest movements can be a lot of cases that flow from that.
But my only question is, with that kind of volume, you need a staff of people to have your back as chief, right?
Oh yeah, you gotta have a staff. You got people you gotta trust, count on doing the work. The chief is vulnerable in many ways because he has to rely upon his command staff and his subordinates to do the work. He's ultimately responsible for work that doesn't get done, and he can be responsible. He makes poor judgment, poor decisions. So a lot of what's taking place here is a sense that they think he made a bad decision, poor decisions. I disagree with that, but that's part of what's under consideration.
Hey, John, don't go anywhere. I appreciate you. I'm going to end this broadcast, folks. This is John Burris. He's a legend. I want you to Google his name. I'm going to attach his bio to this. This is a man you should know. If you don't know Oakland's history, you don't know John Burris. Thank you, sir.
All right, brother. Thank you. Take care.
You got it. All right. And